Good. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Yom Hazikaron program. We're going to begin the evening tonight with the recitation of Tehillim. For as we know, every Yom Hazikaron comes with a heaviness of heart, a brokenness of heart. But this year, we remember those who have perished in the past year. We remember those who have been taken from us on October 7th and in the aftermath of the brutality of that incredibly dark day. And of course, we remember that as we sit here together, united in the comfort of community, over 130 of our brothers and sisters still languish in captivity. Their whereabouts unknown, their condition unknown, and as such it behooves us to begin tonight with a recitation of Tehillim, followed by the singing of Achenu, led by Rabbi Richter. You'll find that the Tehillim is printed on the back of your program. We're doing 2 kapitlach, Kuf Chaf Aleph and Kuf Lamed.
Shir Lamalo Sasainai Elare Me'ayin Yavo Ezri Ezri Me'im Adonai I say Shamayim V'aretz Ayitein Lamot Raglecha Ayonum Shomrecha Hinei V'lo Yushan Shomer Yisrael Adonai Shomerecha Adonai Tzilcha Yad Yaminecha Yomam HaShemesh Lo Yakeka V'yoreach B'layla Adonai Yishmarcha Mikara Yishmaras Nafshecha Adonai Yishmar Tzeischa Voecha Me'atav Yad Olam Shir Hamalos Mimamakim Krasicha Adonai Adonai Shema V'Kali Tiana Aznecha Kashuvas Dekal Tachanunai Im Avonos Tishmar Yah Adonai Mi'amot Ki Imcha Slicha L'man Tivareim Kivisi Adonai Kivsa Nafshi V'dvarai Achalti Nafshi L'Adonai Mishomrim L'Boiker Shomrim L'Boiker Yachel Yisrael El Adonai Kim Adonai HaChesed V'Rabbeim Oifidos V'hu Yiftes Yisrael Mikal Avonasah
Amen.
could just ask you to remain standing for just one more moment as we recite the Kel Malis in memory of those who have given their lives al Kedushas Hashem Ha'am Ba'aretz, as well as for a special Kel Mali composed for the victims of October 7th.
El Malei Rachamim Shochen Bamramim Hamitzevinu Chanechana Kanfei Hashchina B'malos Kedoshim Torim V'giborim Kizohar Kiyamasirim L'nishmos HaKedoshim Shem Nilchamu B'chol Marchos Yisrael B'machteres V'tzvagon Al Yisrael Shenaflu B'milchamatam U'masru Nafsham Al Kiddush Hashem V'al Kiddush Hasam V'aretz U'l'nishmos HaKedoshim Shenirtzichu B'fulos Teror B'aretz U'mechutz Alo Ba'avor Shanu Mispalelin L'nishmosehem L'chein Ba'al Rachamim Yasirem B'seser K'nafav L'olamim V'yitzra b'tzra chayim es nishmosehem Adonai hu nachal asam B'gan Eden eteh b'mnuchasam V'yanuchu v'shalom mishkavam V'sa'amod l'chol Yisrael zechusam V'yamdu l'gorolam l'keitz hayamin V'nomar amen.
Ilma l'rachamim shechein b'amramim Hamtzei minucha nechayna Al kanfei ashchina B'malois kedashim Tarim v'gibarim Kizohar Kiyamirim Asirim L'nishmois HaKadoshim Ezrachei Yisrael Al Nashim V'atav Shenehergu Shenirtzuchu Shenitzrifu Shenitbechu Bidei Ratzchei HaChamas B'nei Havlo Masru Nafsham Al Kiddush Hashem B'askafo Achzaris Al Yeshuvei Medinas Yisrael L'nishmois Chayli Tzivagam Al Yisrael Sheitrei Mishteres Yisrael V'anshei Kochos HaBitachon Shemasru Nafsham Al Kedushas Hashem V'naflu Mois Giborim B'kravois Al Gonason B'aretz Ba'avur Shanu Mispalim L'ilui Nishmosehem B'gan Eden Tehei Menuchasam L'chein Ba'al Rachamim Yasirei Meseser K'nafav L'olamim V'yitzror B'tzra Chaim Es Nishmosehem Adonai hu nachal asam V'yanuchu v'shalom Al mishkavei som V'yamdu l'garalam L'keitz hayamin V'noimar amen. About 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, our shul was privileged, Baruch Hashem, to have our first ever women's Chizuk mission. And it was an incredible and overwhelming and life-changing, cathartic trip. We got together before the trip, and having been to Eretz Yisrael a couple of times since October 7th, I tried to sensitize the group to the fact that a trip to Eretz Yisrael now, and especially the kind of trip that we took, would forever change your experiences of Eretz Yisrael. Because for so many of us, Eretz Yisrael is a place to vacation, halavai one day to live. It's a place to create beautiful and wonderful memories. And I think it's just a place of just unbridled joy, excitement, and happiness. And so our trip went, and we met some of the most incredible people, some of the most incredible stories. And the video that you're going to see in just a few moments is a synopsis. And I say a synopsis because nothing could ever replicate what we experienced in person. And nothing could ever replicate the first-hand accounts of sitting across from literally the heroes and the heroines of Klal Yisrael. Nothing could convey the true enormity of what it means to possess an endless reservoir of inner strength. But the video does a beautiful job of giving you a taste of the strength, the courage, the power, and the pain of our people. I want to thank Yona Openden and a dedicated group of volunteers and narrators who you will meet in Immeasurable Hashem in just a few moments. For working very hard on this video. And I know it was an incredible labor of love. I want to thank Shani Tapa, our executive director, who was really instrumental in helping to organize the trip and choreograph the trip and all the logistical details, to all of the participants, each one who lent a different flavor, a different take, a different perspective. It was truly an incredible schus, a truly transformative experience. Part of the challenge we have when it comes to Yom Hazikaron is that the number is simply so vast. On Yom Hazikaron, we remember the over 25,000 precious souls who have given their lives in the establishment, defense of the State of Israel, and victims of terror. 25,000 is a number that is too great to bear, and too great to even wrap your head around. I remember when we went to the site of the Nova Festival, there was even a sense of sensory overload, just simply by seeing all of the makeshift memorials. Too much to take in at once. And so sometimes when the number itself becomes too overwhelming and the number itself becomes too defined to the intellect, instead of focusing on a great number, we focus on one. Tonight you'll hear the stories of incredible individuals. 4 of those individuals have their placards up here in the front of the shul. Those 4 are Binyamin Ariel, Erli, Ayal Twito, Nitai Meisels, and Ori Shani. Individuals. And I would urge you, after the program is over, walk up front and look at their faces. Each one more beautiful than the next. Each one sweeter and more innocent than the next. Kodesh Kadoshim. Malachim who came down to this world and assumed human form for a limited amount of time to accomplish something for Klal Yisrael, to accomplish something for Am Yisrael. That's who we mourn for tonight. And that's who we reflect on tonight. Not 25,000. Not over 1,000 since October 7th. But 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Because each of these precious neshamas was a world unto themselves. I saw an incredible interview today. When it comes to Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaAtzmaut, there's so much material that comes out of Eretz Yisrael. It's hard to know what to watch and what to look at. So I guess if there was like a Goral Hagra equivalent for YouTube, I just say, Ribono Shalom, whatever you put in my feed is what I'm going to watch. And I saw an incredible interview with a woman by the name of Rivital Shamir. Rivital's husband, Mati, was a commander in Golani, and he was killed by Hamas terrorists on October 7th. And Rivital in this interview, together with Mati's parents, tells the story of one person. But I think it's the story of one person that captures the story of Klal Yisrael. The interview begins with Rivital, who's 30 years old, saying that on Rosh Hashanah this year, she sat down with Mati and their 4.5-year-old son Lavi at the Rosh Hashanah table. And after they had gone through the Simanim, Mati and Rivital looked at each other and they said, Zeh Hashana. This is the year that everything is going to go great for us. This is the year that Baruch Hashem, things are turning around. They're a couple who had struggled with fertility. It took them 6 years to have their first child. And now 4.5 years later, they're expecting their second. A little girl. They knew it was a girl. And all this couple wanted in life was a son and a daughter. And Rivital writes, everything was coming together. Mati had just turned 30, was a decorated and respected career officer, and everything about life was falling into place. And then she said the morning of Simchas Torah, October 7th, came. Mati woke up to the constant buzzing of his phone, WhatsApp messages coming in, neighbors knocking on the door, Shamata, did you hear what's going on? Anachnu milchama, we're at war. Mati gathered himself up and realized that his vest, his bulletproof vest, and his helmet were at his parents' house. The entire family, the extended family, lives in the yeshuv of Elkanah. Mati ran out of the house. He ran to his parents' house, ran in the door. His mother said, what's going on? He said, Ima, yesh milchama kashe bedarom, yesh chatufim. Mother, there's a very difficult war in the south. There are hostages. And his mother, Eti, responded, she said, Ma, karulecha? Did the army call you up? They told you to come? Mati said, Lo. He said, no, they didn't call me, but I'm going. And she said to him, Ata zocher? Yesh lecha isha behirayon. Where are you going? You have a pregnant wife. Ben, Lavi ben Arba v'chetzi. You have a son who's 4.5 years old. Where are you going? To which Mati simply responded, Ima, at lo mivina. Mother, you don't understand. And Eti Shamir says in the interview, Chibakti oto, nashakti oto, berachti oto birkat banim. I hugged him, I kissed him, and I gave him a bracha. This was Shabbos. Shabbos went by. Sunday went by. Monday comes. And Mati's father, Yosef, says, Anachnu yoshim basalon. We're sitting in the living room. V'ra'iti kvar mizavit hadelet. And I saw out of the little window by the door frame, chayalim. I saw soldiers approaching our house. Amarti la'eti. He said to his wife, Hem hegiu. They have come. And the father was a very stoic man throughout the entire interview. Says, Ha'olam nachrav. My entire world was destroyed. Im kolatzar hagadol va'avdon va'achoser. All of the tragedy, all of the loss, tamid tiyeh et hachor hazeh. There will always be a hole in my life. That hole, shekorim lo mati. The name of that hole. The name of that hole is my son, Mati. The end of the interview, which switches back to Rivital. And she says, here she was, 6-7 months pregnant, and now a widow. She said, Eichani yichola lahachzik herayon acharei bisora kazot. She said, how could I maintain this pregnancy after hearing what had happened to my husband? Mitzad echad ani megadelet chayim, On one hand, I'm literally nurturing life inside of me. ומצד שני יש מוות כזה גדול. And on the other hand, there is death in my life every day. When Revital gave birth, she kept a picture of her husband Mati by her bedside. And she said, Berega hazeh, in that moment that I gave birth, Hachayim v'hamavet hitchabru. In that moment that I brought a child into this world, the daughter that we had waited for so long, life and death became intertwined. And she ends off. She says the following: Ani bocheret lamshich lachyot. I choose to continue to live. Anachnu nakum me'ashever hazeh, v'anachnu nitzmach mimenu. We will get up from this brokenness, and we will blossom as a result. Kulanu nakum mizeh, v'kulanu nitzmach mizeh. We will all get up from this, and we will all flourish from this pain. Vikra po mashehu gadol. Something great will happen. Yavo or gadol. A great light will come. Yavo or gadol. A 30-year-old officer who had every right to stay home, but felt pulled to protect his people, to protect his family, to protect his nation, to protect his land. That's what we mourn for tonight. But the mourning is not a mourning of Yeush. It's not a mourning of desperation. And it's not a mourning of hopelessness. In the words of Revital Shamir, Kulanu nakum mizeh v'kulanu nitzmach mizeh. The power of our people is not simply that we're able to overcome. The power of our people is not simply that we're able to survive. The power of our people is that we're able to thrive. We're able to grow. We're able to flourish. We're able to blossom. Because the pain feeds our collective soul. Because the pain strengthens our resolve. Because the pain reminds us that no matter what life or the world throws our way, there's something special about Am Yisrael, about the spirit of Am Yisrael, which cannot be conquered. So we mourn, but we mourn with hope. We cry, but we cry tears of optimism. We are heartbroken, but at the same time filled with incredible resolve. V'yikra po mashehu gadol. We are in the midst of overwhelming and incredible times. But something great is going to come. Yavo or gadol. The great light will come. And may we be zocha mirat Hashem to experience it. Immeasurable Rabbi. Amen.
The purpose of this trip was for us to give Chizuk to our brothers and sisters 6,000 miles away. We wanted them to know that they are not alone. But as it turned out, we received so much more from them than they received from us.
You know, we called it a Chizuk mission, and I think our intended purpose was to try to give something to our brothers and sisters. And yet we walked away so enriched, so overwhelmed. And I think to summarize the entirety of the trip, every day was a mixture of emotions. There was overwhelming heartbreak. There was overwhelming sadness. To walk through the devastation, to hear the stories, to meet people whose lives have been shattered into so many pieces, to see physical homes destroyed, communities destroyed, to see our proud people humbled was overwhelmingly sad and overwhelmingly heartbreaking. And yet at the same time, as you'll see in this video, the stories of people who are filled with the most incredible courage, the most overwhelming emunah, to be able to go to the different communities in Eretz Yisrael and to hear not a story of desperation, not a story of despondence, not a story of yeush, but a story of resolve, of optimism, of hope. To be able to walk on the holy soil of Eretz Yisrael and to feel the nitzchias, the eternality of Klal Yisrael. To be able to feel the pain, to feel the heartbreak, but at the same time, to feel that hope, that optimism, and that knowledge that Klal Yisrael will emerge from this even stronger.
We have all heard of the atrocities that our brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael endured on October 7th, and the ongoing trauma our people continue to endure. When hearing these horrors, it is so easy to become completely lost in sorrow. However, that is not the message portrayed by the families, survivors, and everyday heroes of October 7th. Their message is one of continued faith, prayer, acts of kindness, unity, and resilience. The Suburban Orthodox Women's Chizuk mission spent 3 days sharing intimate encounters with our emotionally wounded brothers and sisters in Israel, who exemplified these exact sentiments. Their human emotion of grief was certainly felt, but their uplifting perspective of Emunah in Hashem and their unwavering love and support for Eretz Yisrael was deep and profound. In the depths of their sorrow, they provided chizuk and inspiration to those around them. These people are heroes. They were members of a kibbutz civilian security group, mothers and fathers sending young boys and girls off to war, 21-year-old soldiers protecting their sacred land in the prime of their youth. These are the shields of our nation and the beating heart of our people. They experienced the worst horrors endured by Klal Yisrael in this generation, a brutal speck on the map of historic Jewish persecution. But they emerged from the darkness with hope in their eyes and pride in their hearts. They are the heroes of our time, role models of our nation, both wounded and mighty, with every step and breath. These are their stories.
Jen Early and her husband Robert made Aliyah in 2006 with 3 kids, after which they added 3 more children to the family. Their oldest son, Binyamin, aged 21, was killed fighting in Gaza when he bravely pushed his way forward to neutralize terrorists who were shooting at his unit. Since then, Jen Early has been speaking openly from the heart with extraordinary candor, strength, and faith. She described the challenges of raising Binyamin, who had attended 7 schools by 11th grade, until he found the right place for him, which was the turning point in his life.
Lesson in parenting is we plant a lot of seeds, and we don't realize seeds will really grow.
With a lot of tefillos, tears, and active parenting, Binyamin emerged from his teens as a remarkable young man who lived with a rare clarity of mission. He believed deeply in the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. Part of Binyamin's legacy, despite his life being tragically cut short, is that he really worked on himself to maximize his potential, always striving to accomplish as much as possible.
Binyamin had a line, Masha Kashin say, whatever's hard work today, whatever's impossible, I'll do tomorrow. Nothing is actually too impossible to ever do.
While the pain of losing Binyamin is profound, Jen and her husband made a conscious effort not to ask why or for what, but rather, what can we do, or how can we grow? How can we try to make good out of this? Jen has taken it upon herself to share stories about Binyamin in order to share his legacy and allow others to draw inspiration from his life. Shortly after his death, Jen found a piece of paper in Binyamin's room with a list of about 55 goals that he wanted to accomplish, that he wrote when he was about 16 or 17 years old. On this list, he noted his goals to visit Uman, work out and be healthy, have good friends, do well on his Bagriyot, make it to an elite unit in Sahal, to have a good relationship with his extended family, especially his own family, to learn a lot of Torah, to learn how to daven with conviction, to take the time to talk to Hashem, to make enough money, to own horses, and to be an anav. The astounding thing is that in his short life, Binyamin actually accomplished so many of the items on his list. Jen's message of inspiration to others is to push forward, live meaningfully and intentionally, to stay focused on your goals and what is important in life, and to make your own list of goals today.
And what I definitely learned through this whole process is whatever what you think you have one. And then when you think that's all you have, you actually have one. And that's what all these soldiers have proven to us. We have more hope than we realize. It's just time to fight for the goal.
This is Shiri Twito, the mother of Eyal Twito, age 22, who was killed while fighting in Gaza. Eyal had a close connection to the Baltimore community, having served as a shinshin, a type of shaliach or ambassador, at Or Hadash Academy several years ago. Our family was privileged to know Eyal personally, as he spent a portion of his time in Baltimore as a member of our household. Eyal, who served as a commander, was killed along with his fellow unit commanders when they chose to go first into a possible ambush situation rather than make their soldiers go before them. All of their unit members remained safe and survived. Shiri described Eyal as the child who challenged her the most, but as she then said, he grew up to be the most amazing boy.
I'm a mother of 6 and I love all male kids, but I had a very, very strong connection with him because everything was to the extreme. He was the nicest boy, the most respectful, the loving, the most serious and the most funny. Everything he did was to the extreme.
Eyal made the most out of every situation. He pushed himself to excel, but his pursuit of excellence did not detract from his congenial demeanor. As depicted on a sticker that his friends made in his honor, he was known to say, Im osim et zeh, az b'chiyuch. If you are doing it, then do it with a smile. Shiri Twito feels a sense of purpose in talking and sharing about her son. She said, as long as there is someone willing to listen, I am here to talk about him. Shiri, who works as a head of school, returned to her job after Eyal's death on the condition that she be able to leave and share Eyal's story whenever she is asked to do so. Before going into Gaza, Eyal wrote for himself a list of reasons for which he is fighting in this war.
Wrote הצוות שלי, he was a commander, so הצוות שלי is the soldiers who are under him, who he commands. My little brothers, he called them, the people that I love the most. Those who I'm willing to get the bullet for them, and better than that, those who I'm willing to live with him and for him. We're all together till the end. We go together, we came together, and we go out together.
You can see depicted here the list Eyal shared, what I am fighting for my country, the place where my entire past exists, the essence for which I live, for my land, the views, the ocean, the north, the Galil, and the Hermon, every piece of land in this amazing country, the most beautiful place in the world, for my nation, my brothers and sisters, those who live in this country, and those who live outside of it, my extended family that lives in places in the world that I will never get to, those who in hard times will be there by my side, my family, my mother, my father, my grandfather and grandmother, my brothers and sisters, my grandfather. He made Aliyah in the name of Zionism, built his house in a small, remote moshav with a dream to settle the land. He created a beautiful family and taught them values of friendship, family, and exceptional Zionism. My grandfather fought stubbornly to get here, and I will ensure that we will be able to stay here forever. My nephew, the little boy, beautiful and smart. He should grow and become a man of values and morals, that he should grow up in a better place. Eyal ends with the following powerful question: what are you fighting for?
Elior is the 34-year-old husband and father of 3 young children who reside in the idyllic kibbutz of Zikim, right on the Gaza border. On the morning of October 7th, he and 9 other men, who were part of the Civilian Protective Guard, heroically defended their kibbutz by running to the area where the fence was breached by terrorists and successfully kept them from entering the kibbutz. This kibbutz is one that we, thank God, have not heard about on the news because they were able to prevent the infiltration of terrorists that day. Elior brought us to the location of the breach in the fence at the 17 to 18 mark. At this spot, he and several other civilians from the kibbutz prevented 10 terrorists from entering Zikim on the morning of October 7th. 3 injured civilian guards are still currently recovering, but the entire beautiful seaside kibbutz of 1,000 people was saved that day due to their heroic bravery.
Get World War I fight, they shooting, we shooting, they shooting, we shooting, but you don't have a lot of movement. 3 of them tried to flank and come to this tree. The guys that were in this grass shooted them. 2 of them we know for sure they've killed because we saw 2 bodies there. You can see it very, very clearly here with the interest of the bullet and where they came out. This is ours. You see the interest. It came from ours and went outside. So this you can see all around the fence the holes.
Eli is a farmer who lives in Kerem Shalom, a kibbutz that is located right on the border with Gaza, about 50 meters from Rafah. It is a small kibbutz of about 43 families, 200 people in total, comprised of both secular and religious families. The kibbutz sits desolate now. Since October 7th, no one has been living there. You can still see Eli's sukkah standing on his porch. In front of Eli's sukkah, you can see the charred remains of a car that got hit by an RPG. On the morning of October 7th, Hamas terrorists used explosives to blast through the concrete wall that surrounds Kerem Shalom. Eli, along with 8 other civilian security guards, killed 29 terrorists who infiltrated from 2 breach points in the wall. 2 terrorists made it through and reached the first house by the wall, home to the Schindler family. The house now sits eerily quiet, a living testament to the miracle that took place there that day. Amichai, his wife Abital, and their 6 kids were in the family's safe room when the terrorists tried to enter. Amichai held the door shut with his body and all of his strength. The terrorists detonated an explosive right outside the door as Amichai stood behind it, blocking their entrance. Amichai stood strong and absorbed the explosion, saving his family. He lost 1 arm and 3 fingers from the other, but he miraculously survived. Amichai Schindler's heroism gives new meaning to the expression, saving them with his body. Eli and his fellow civilian security guards managed to draw out the terrorists from the Schindler home and kill them. As he described the heroic bravery that he and his fellow civilian guards demonstrated that day, Eli's demeanor was unassuming. He was just an ordinary man who saved hundreds of lives that day. The kibbutz lost 2 members of their security squad that day, Amichai and Yedidia, but together they saved the entire kibbutz. 2 newly planted trees sit at the border of the kibbutz to honor their memory.
Lear, age 27, was born and raised on the idyllic kibbutz Kfar Aza, home to about 900 residents, right on the border with Gaza, about 800 meters from the fence and 2.2 kilometers from Gaza. Lear and her neighbors would send kites with messages of peace to their Gazan neighbors across the fence. They drove them to medical appointments in Israel, contributed to wedding gifts, and together dreamed of a lasting peace one day. On October 7th, Kfar Aza became the scene of unfathomable brutality. Today, these hallowed grounds sit desolate, a closed military zone that is soaked with the blood of her friends, Jews who died al Kiddush Hashem. On October 7th, hundreds of terrorists stormed this beautiful kibbutz. The local security squad was ambushed early on, leaving the residents with no real protection. 64 residents of Kfar Aza were brutally murdered that day. 19 were taken hostage, and 5 are still being held captive in Gaza today. Lear's friends and neighbors were tortured, raped, decapitated, and burned alive. Her friend Emily is still held in Gaza today. She often thinks how easily it could have been the reverse, and Emily would be here giving us the tour instead. This gate was breached by around 70 Hamas terrorists who stormed in on trucks and motorcycles. 10 terrorists came in on paragliders. Another wave of terrorists arrived around 9:30 a.m. Then, around noon, a storm of civilian Gazans, including women and children, crossed over in droves to loot, rape, and butcher. Since alcohol is not allowed in Gaza, Lear and her neighbors could hear the terrorists drinking her friend's beer, eating their food, and reveling in their butchery. All this happening as she and her family hid in their secure room for over 12 hours. Young adults in Kfar Aza live in a stretch of about 40 small home units designed for single occupancy. On October 7th, Hamas terrorists specifically targeted this area.
They began by throwing grenades or burning tires into the housing units. Those who ran out were massacred. Others were shot, tortured, burned alive, or kidnapped. One of Lear's friends managed to escape through the window. Another sacrificed his life when he jumped on a grenade to save his girlfriend, who actually survived that day. This is where Sivan lived and died. Her parents requested that her unit remain open to visitors so that they can bear witness to the horror their daughter experienced in her last moments of life. The walls are ridden with bullet holes, and the blood-stained couch is marked, contains human remains. On the wall, a poster depicts the last text messages that Sivan had with her parents. This row of units is an area from which many of the hostages were taken. They no longer allow photos to be taken in this area because any information posted online can be used by Hamas to hurt or psychologically torture the hostages. This is the home of the Kutz family. They're the ones who started what became the annual events of sending kites to Gaza with messages of peace, love, and hope. The event, which was supposed to take place later that day. The entire family was found executed. Their parents' bodies were found hugging their children's bodies. Aviv 54, Livnat 49, Rotem 19, Yonatan 17, and Yiftach 15. Hashem Yinkom Damam. This is the home where Hadar and Itai Berdachevsky were murdered. Their 10-month-old twins were left to cry for 14 hours, while Hamas terrorists waited, hoping to use their cries as bait. Tomer Greenberg, a highly regarded colonel, bravely rescued the babies. He was killed a month later in Gaza. This is the re-election poster for Ophir Liebstein, the beloved mayor of Kfar Aza that remains hanging in the empty kibbutz. He was known for saying, Kfar Aza is 95% heaven, 5% hell, but he promised to work hard to improve the 5%. He was a leader, a visionary who spearheaded many initiatives, including the creation of an industrial center that provided employment to some 5,000 Palestinians. On October 7, his house was used by Hamas as their command center in Kfar Aza. Ophir was part of the local security team. He was killed trying to defend the kibbutz. His son Nitzan was killed in the young adult housing area, and his mother-in-law and nephew were killed that day as well. 4 family members all gone in one day. On our way out of Kfar Aza stands this paddleboard with the message, "You can't murder a soul." Indeed, as we heard story after heartbreaking story, it felt like the neshamas of our holy brothers and sisters were right there with us, whispering words of comfort, strength, and hope. Peeking out of the windowsill of a home that was destroyed stands this menorah, reminding us that even in the midst of overwhelming tragedy, the light of hope and perseverance always remains shining.
This is the site of the Nova Music Festival, where 364 people were brutally murdered the morning of October 7th. In this place now exists a beautiful, authentic memorial created by their families. Many visitors, including soldiers, come to pay their respects as they walk silently through rows and rows of photos, one beautiful soul after another who perished that day. Our Lerzi, we love you and miss you dearly. May your memory be a blessing. In a place where there are no words, only hugs will do. The world was created for me, and I am but the dust of the earth. There is no shortcut to the places that are worth going to. And to uplift everyone, that is the mission now. As the sun began to set on the hallowed grounds of the Nova Festival, we gathered by the photo of Eitan Moore, my cousin, who was taken hostage that day. With tears streaming down our faces, we said Tehillim and begged Hashem for the hostages' safe return home to their families. The following day, we met with Eitan's parents in Kiryat Arba, Hebron, and witnessed their indescribable strength and resolve firsthand. We were welcomed into the house of Tzvika and Efrat Moore with a beautiful fruit arrangement, and we were encouraged to take and to make a bracha. They shared that their son Eitan, only 24, was working security at the Nova Festival. During the attack, he ran back and forth, rescuing dozens of people. They've seen footage of him there that day, treating injured people. He was captured as he was trying to bury the body of a female victim in a pit that they saw, in order to make sure that the body would not be taken hostage. Tzvika shared that they see their role as being strong for the people of Israel. He believes they derive their strength from the holiness of their location, near Ma'arat HaMachpelah, where our holy Avos and Imahos are buried, located right near their home.
Unlike many of the hostage families, the Moors remain adamant in their stance against the government forming any deal involving the exchange of terrorists for hostages.
Will not do any deal with the terrorists. We paid enough. The Israeli people paid enough. And not only on October 7, but in the past 100 years.
They know they are in the minority of hostage families, but they are holding strongly to their faith in Hashem and the strength of the IDF to bring their son back soon. They are also strengthened in their resolve because they recently had a conversation with Eitan about Gilad Shalit, an IDF soldier who was held hostage for many years and was returned to Israel in exchange for 1,000 terrorists. During the course of this discussion, Eitan told his parents that if it were him, he would not want terrorists exchanged on his behalf.
When we were told that Eitan was kidnapped, we decided that we will keep to be a happy and optimistic family. We have our faith and our Torah and our Kadosh Baruch Hu, and we know that all the things are going to be good, and maybe we will have to pay, but for the people of Israel, it will be good at last.
Eitan's mother, Efrat, derives a lot of strength from the fact that her son was involved in the tremendous mitzvah of Kvuras Hames, burying the dead when he was captured.
חשוב לי לומר שעם כל הקושי, אני מרגישה שהכל מדויק מהשם. כאילו השם מעביר אותנו ניסיון, אבל הוא נותן לנו הרבה כוח, והוא גם מוליד מאיתנו דברים חדשים.
The Moors are working on building a shul in their neighborhood, a cause that was near and dear to their son as well, in the hope that he will return soon and be able to enjoy it as well.
Ariella, age 22, served as a tatzpitanit, an observer at Kisufim on the Gaza border on the morning of October 7th. Ariella shared beautiful, inspiring, and heartbreaking stories, photos, video clips, songs, letters, and poems that brought to life her many friends, too many friends, who had served with her and were killed that day. We heard her first-hand account of their bravery in facing the enemy, but also of their fear, their sacrifice, having seen, as she described, things that no one should ever have to see. Ariella herself had reported suspicious activities at the border the weeks and days leading up to October 7th. Yes, she is angry, but her primary feeling and the aura she conveyed was one of strength, conviction, and resilience. She thought she would never return to her job in the blood-soaked operations room where they hid and brought in the injured, but she has returned because she knows she is the best at her job and because she is still alive, carrying on the memories of her colleagues and friends. To say she is a hero is an understatement, and this is not even referring to her brave actions that day, so casually referenced by her. She braved enemy fire to help others to safety several times. She used her shirt to fashion tourniquets for many of her friends to save their lives that day. She described the terror she and her friends experienced when they accepted that they would likely die soon after they heard terrorists on the roof of their observation building.
I was on call on October 7th. That means that I'm not during the shift and I'm not sleeping. I have to be in the operations room in case something happens. I was resting on the chair at 6:30, and I wake up from booms that I've never heard anything like that in my life. I go outside, and I see the sky's black. I see just missiles landing everywhere. A missile landed in the shul, on my base, and I knew immediately something was off. I went back in, and there's 7 girls sitting like they have a shift. And each girl starts screaming after one another when they're coming to cross the border. And we all just said everyone's gonna die because there's not enough soldiers on base.
What we saw was an incredibly resilient young woman who lost over 30 young and beautiful friends that day. They all loved their country, families, friends, their life, so full of fun, laughter, and promise.
I just want to say all these people that are in these pictures aren't alive anymore. And just in one day, they're all gone.
Giving this talk and going over the harrowing personal losses of that day must have been so hard. Yet she is committed to honoring the memory of these Kedoshim, holy, brave, and innocent souls, by sharing their stories. For as she aptly said, every person is a whole world. One of the soldiers Ariella served with was Ori Shani, whose father we visited the following day. Ori, who recently became a father himself,
was serving as a platoon commander at the Kisufim on October 7th. He managed to eliminate dozens of terrorists trying to enter the outpost, thereby saving the lives of the female observers who were hiding in the operations center, including Ariella. At around 10 a.m. that morning, Ori made his soldiers take this smiling picture, saying to them, "We are fighting for our country, and if anything happens, this is the picture we will show to your mothers, so smile." After his death, Ori's father found in his Rosh Hashanah Machzor a list of things Ori took upon himself. "I take upon myself a morning Seder Chavrusa, to be masmid in Mishnayos, to be masmid in a Seder of Halacha, to be in love with the Torah, to serve Hashem, to get into some kind of chavura of those who serve, to become attached to my learning, to have a Rav, to find true friends, a good eye, to love every Jew, anger, to be calm, happiness, not to fall into sadness, to see the good, to use every minute, Lashon Hara."
But we try very hard, and it's a challenge, to have Ayin Tova, good eye, Le'ehov Kol Yehudi. It's a challenge that he took to himself to love every Jew, no matter if he's a religious, not religious, Haredi, not Haredi. And he, all what we heard from him, that he was like that. Even in the army, that he had colleagues that was even anti-Dati, he was always with a good relationship with everybody.
Reim Batito served with Ori Shani. Reim was the oldest son and an exceptional student, was remarkably determined, and worked hard to get into a top military program. He, along with Ori Shani, bravely faced and eliminated dozens of terrorists against all odds. When they returned to their base to rearm themselves, Reim called his mother to tell her that he loves her. Eli Chuli, an Israeli singer, composed a song based on their recording of their last conversation before he was killed at the border on October 7th.
אני חזרתי למוצב.
ויש איתך עוד חיילים?
מה שנשאר.
יש לנו הרבה פצועים, הרוגים, מה?
לא חסר.
תקשיב, ראם, אתה צריך להתעשת על עצמך, ואתה נושם, ואתה נותן בראש, אני איתך, אני צומחת עליך.
יש 1,000 לוחמי ג'יהאד של הכוחות המיוחדים.
תמשיך להיות חזק, ראם.
אני רק רציתי להגיד לך שאני אוהב אותך, וכאילו, אם יקרה משהו עצמי.
These are Eitan and Ayala Mazels, parents of Nitai Mazel, Hashem Yikom Damo, a tank unit commander who was killed in action in Gaza. The Mazels spent 3 years living in Baltimore while obtaining their PhDs at Hopkins. This was the Mazels' first time talking publicly about their son to our group. Although it was difficult, they felt that they couldn't keep the values we can learn from Nitai all to themselves. Nitai was a talented individual who was hired to train special ops in the States. He was also a dedicated volunteer medic. Nitai was exceptional in his kibbud avim, often not telling his elderly parents about his military exploits so they wouldn't worry. His parents learned so much about him during Shiva that they wished they would have known all of his wonderful attributes while he was still alive. He was a beloved uncle to his nieces and nephews who viewed him as a cool older brother. Although you could tell how raw their pain was, Nitai's parents shared many funny and remarkable anecdotes about their son. He saved a stroke victim's life. The ambulance driver wanted to turn around because he couldn't find the victim's address, but Nitai was determined not to give up. He was the one who went back and helped the park ranger clean up trash after everyone left. He was an adventurous spirit and managed to visit many of the great American national parks. Although Nitai's parents' emotions were raw and on the surface, they maintained composure as they shared stories about their son. The one time Nitai's father teared up was when he was asked about how the grandchildren, who he had described as particularly close to Nitai, were doing. It felt as though he was able to contain his own pain, but when he described the pain of those children, it was simply too much for him to bear. Nitai's parents shared 10 principles which he embodied during his life. Family is important. Father, mother, grandmother, brothers, nephews, and nieces, and also friends who are family. Ask, learn, and wait. There's no such thing as too much knowledge. You're most beautiful when you're comfortable. Go for a walk whenever you can, whatever the weather.
nature was really important to Nitai. Improve that which can be improved. If you do something, do it properly or don't do it at all. Always take the initiative. Beer, like yellow cheese, should be put straight into the fridge so it will be cool and ready to be pulled out at any time. Don't complain. Act. Love your neighbor as yourself, even if he is not like yourself.
If you do something, do it properly or don't do it at all. That's this one. תעשה הכי טוב שאתה יכול, או אל תעשה בכלל. And that was really his, I think, well, out of the 10, I think that was his one of the most important points to him. He was very particular to do things correctly, not to cut the corner. He was very much careful like that.
In honor of Nitai's passion as a volunteer medic, his parents are raising money to fund an armored ambulance in his memory.
Hostage Square is a public plaza in Tel Aviv that has become the go-to place for those seeking to express solidarity with the pain of the hostages, their families, and our collective nation. Visitors can link arms with others as they stand or sit in a circle and sing heartfelt songs of Achdus. You can walk through a mock tunnel meant to briefly simulate the situation of hostages being held underground, its concrete walls covered with messages of solidarity and hope for their return. Throughout the square, one can view poignant artwork, exhibits, and displays. A long Shabbos table is set for each of the hostages, including high chairs for babies. An hourglass stands still, signaling that time has run out. An electronic sign counts down the days, minutes, and seconds, marking the passage of time, each unit of time too long for any of us to bear. Decorated stones are arranged to spell out, "We are waiting for you." Both heartbreaking and hopeful, the mood is heavy and emotional. It was at Hostage Square that we met Julie Cooperstein, mother of Bar Cooperstein, who was taken hostage on October 7th and has not been heard from to date. Julie's pain was so palpable, it was like you could actually see the weight of it bearing down on her slumping shoulders. Her son Bar was working security at the Nova Festival. He did this in his spare time to help support his family, since his father was injured in a car accident and remained a paraplegic. When asked what gives her strength, Julie shared that while her family is not observant, she on her own became observant 13 years ago, and that her faith is truly what she feels is helping her during this time. She also finds solace in observing Shabbos. Each week, she delivers food and supplies to several families who have taken upon themselves to observe Shabbos that week. The trunk of her van is filled with essential Shabbos supplies, such as hot plates and urns that she delivers to other families so that they can keep Shabbos in zechus of her son Bar and the other hostages' safe return back home.
Kever Rachel Avenu, the burial spot of our holy matriarch, Mama Rachel, who promised to pray for her children as they passed by her roadside grave, is where we met two of our nation's holy women. Miriam Madani's name has become synonymous with Kever Rachel, for she is the force behind the efforts to protect, maintain, and encourage people to visit Kever Rachel, to ensure a constant presence at this holy site. Motivated by her concern about the lack of security at the site, which resulted in a lack of visitors in the early 2000s, Miriam decided to reach out to high-level security officials, promising them that she will guarantee visitors if they will guarantee security. She then fundraised huge sums of money to provide free transportation to Kever Rachel to ensure that the people would come and daven at this holy site. Over the past 20 years, Miriam has continued to work with government and army officials to maintain the kedusha, safety, and maintenance of the site. Miriam confessed to us that these efforts started from a phone call from her kitchen table, where she, as she called herself, a simple housewife, merely jumped in to fill an important need. Today, her organization, the Kever Rachel Heritage Fund, is internationally known and has raised millions of dollars to preserve and maintain Kever Rachel so that all of us can enjoy the privilege of going there to beseech Rachel Imenu, Rachel, our mother, on behalf of Klal Yisrael. At the site of Kever Rachel Imenu, we met Sigalit, mother of Elia Cohen, who was taken hostage from the Nova Festival. We were also joined by Elia's sisters and Michal, a cousin of the Bibas family, the beautiful red-haired babies and their mother and father, who were taken hostage from Kibbutz Nir Oz. Sigalit shared that Elia is her firstborn son, a brother to his 3 sisters. On the morning of October 7, Elia and his friends hid in a shelter the size of a small bathroom with 29 other people. Their shelter was the one that was famously protected by Aner Eliakim Shapiro, who stepped out of the shelter and heroically threw back 7 grenades as they were thrown by the terrorists and was tragically killed by the 8th grenade. Witnesses share that Elia was shot and then dragged by terrorists to Gaza. The last the family has heard or seen of Elia is a video released by Hamas showing his abduction. Together, our group performed the special mitzvah of Hafrashas Challah.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להפריש חלה תרומה. הרי זו חלה.
At the holy site of Kever Rachel, about whom the Navi Yirmiyahu says, Kol barama nishma nihi b'chi tamarim, Rachel mevaka al banaha, me'ana lihinachem al banaha ki enanu. For Rachel Imenu will not be consoled until every one of her children are home. We too will not dry our tears until each of our hostages is returned to the loving embrace of their family. Vishavu banim ligvulam. In the presence of these women, heartbroken and yet emanating faith and strength, we were reminded that bring them home now can't just be a mantra we chant, something we wear on our t-shirt or a ribbon. It must be something that we live every day. We each have some avoda that we can do. We must ask ourselves every day, what am I doing to bring our brothers and sisters home?
And thank you for all of you that you are doing this Hafrashat Challah. It's very important that we are praying all day and you are with us, because we need to pray for the Bibas and for Noah and for everyone, 134 hostages that's still in Gaza, and we hope that every day they will come back, and we want them back today, healthy and alive.
After hearing these heartbreaking but incredible stories of bravery and emunah, how do we, the Jews of the diaspora, properly digest these unimaginable experiences? Even more so, how do we glean inspiration from such horrific tragedies? The answer to this lies in putting everything into a proper frame of reference. It is said that the Baba Sali would pour a shot of arak and make a l'chaim with those who came to see him. And the bottle from which he poured never ran out of arak. If you've tasted arak, maybe that's why. Likewise, Hashem always repairs our reservoirs. We sometimes think, the more I give, the less I will have. But really the opposite is true. The more you give, the more you receive from Hashem. During our visits to Zikim, Kerem Shalom, and Kfar Aza, we heard so many stories of selfless givers and of Mesiras Nefesh. We met parents of hostages and soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice, and in the depths of their pain, they found reservoirs of strength and inspiration to share onto others. You and I see these people and we think the only thing we have in common is that we simply breathe oxygen. But it's not so. We are all given challenges by Hashem and the strength to overcome these struggles. This is not a new story for Am Yisrael, who have experienced 2,000 years worth of Churban. These individuals were placed in a situation and rose to the occasion. We must remember that our spiritual DNA is the same. It courses through our veins as well. Instead of focusing on tragic events, focus on the strength Hashem has granted us. Focus on the endurance we continue to showcase as Hashem fills our hearts with hope and pride, although we may appear broken. In every generation, they may rise against us, but in every generation, Hashem allows us to prevail. We must all take strength from the greatness we witness in these everyday heroes and activate it within ourselves to remain as the strong and proud Jews that we are. The flame of our neshamos may flicker and dim in the winds of Galus, but the light within ourselves and the light we project onto others will never, ever extinguish.
There's a beautiful idea by the Kotzker, the great tzaddik Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotzk, who said that there is nothing more whole than a broken heart. This has been a statement that I think we've all heard throughout the years. But the truth is that I finally came to understand over the course of this most recent trip, our women's Chizuk trip to Eretz Yisrael. See, I think what the Chizuk was saying was like this. Sometimes when something is whole, the full measure of kochos, the full measure of ability and strength that it possesses is not fully known. It's only when you break it that the energy comes forth. It's only when you break it that you see what's really on the inside. I think since October 7th, there hasn't been a day where I think almost all of us haven't, if not being brought to tears, been brought close to tears. Because we feel that broken kite. We feel that pain, we feel that sadness. But the incredible part is that within the breakage, there's such power. That within the breakage, there's such koach. The power of Klal Yisrael is that when you break us, there is so much kedusha that comes out. When you hurt us, there is so much achdos that flows forth. When you try to beat us down and you try to subdue our spirit, that's when the neshama opens up. And every little bit of beautiful, holy Yiddish treasure comes flowing out. With so many lost and so many killed, and as of the time of this recording, still over 130 of our brothers and sisters held hostage in Gaza. How could we be shalom? How could we be complete? Because when you break open the collective soul of Klal Yisrael, all of that holiness, and all of that goodness, and all of that purity, and all of that achdus just simply flows forth. So if you want to do something for Klal Yisrael in this time of incredible need, simply following current events is not enough. It's important, it's a mandate. Simply crying is not even enough. Mourning is not enough. Remembering is not enough. Doing is what times like this demand of us. Figure out, what's your Kabbalah? What are you taking upon yourself? How is your life going to be different? How are you going to provide an aliyah for the neshamas of all of those who have been taken from us? What zuchus will you provide for our precious soldiers who are moser nefesh, who are willing to risk their lives for Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael? What additional mitzvah or avodah are you willing to take upon yourself for the benefit of our hostages? And if we pool our collective energy, if we each reach down within our broken heart and pull out just a little bit more kedusha, there is no telling what we can accomplish. Again, a tremendous thank you to all of the women of the Chizuk mission who participated in the creation, the production, the narration of this incredible video. Hopefully you found it moving, uplifting, heartbreaking, inspiring, and halavai, it motivates us to become a better version of ourselves in Mirza Hashem in the days, in the weeks, and the months ahead. We enter into this strange transition now, where we move calendrically from Yom Hazikaron to Yom HaAtzmaut. And I think for many of us, it's often one of the strangest transitions to go from a day of such incredible heartbreak, to go from a day of mourning, of national mourning, and then to go into a day of celebration, a day of incredible besoros tovos, beautiful tidings, holy tidings, reflection on the contemporary miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has done for us. But the truth is, it's not a strange transition. It's the same transition that our people has been making for thousands of years. In Parshas Vayishlach, Yaakov Avinu has the incredible battle against the Sar Shal Esav, against the ministering angel of Esav. And the pasuk says that he fought against Esav the entire night. And the pasuk says that the angel, the Ish, goes ahead. Vataka kaf yerech Yaakov be'erkoimo. The Ish, the angel, injures Yaakov by grabbing on to his leg, injuring him. And the pasuk says the next morning, Vayizrach lo hashemesh kashar avas penuel. The sun came up the next morning, v'hutzoleah al yirecho. And Yaakov Avinu was limping. And the Ramban says so beautifully that this is a metaphor for the national Jewish experience. We fight, and we fight such incredibly fierce battles, and we fight overwhelming battles, and we do not emerge unscathed from those battles. We are wounded, we are often broken, and we are often limping, but the Ramban says we're still standing. And that, dear friends, is the celebration of Yom HaAtzmaut, a celebration of Me'afela Li'ora, from the darkness into light, a celebration which recognizes that no matter what we have endured or will have to endure as a people, Netzach Yisrael lo yishaker, Am Yisrael chai, we are an eternal people who possesses an eternal light, who possesses an eternal Kiddusha that cannot be stamped out. So as we close out tonight's program with a little last shira, we take with us the pain of that which has been lost, coupled with the optimism that we still stand strong and united, with strengthened resolve to live differently. You know, you heard every single one of the young men. It's incredible. It's absolutely what was shocking, and we didn't script this obviously in the trip. Every single one of these boys had a list. How does that happen? That every single person has a list, not a shopping list, right? Not a to-do list, not things I want to improve in my house list, not things I want to buy list. A life list of things that they want to accomplish in life. 20-year-olds are usually shirking responsibility. 30-year-olds are usually shirking responsibility. Now it's 40-year-olds are often shirking responsibility. Lists about what you want to accomplish in life. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands about how many of us have a list like that. That if we were to leave this world today, would our family find an aspirational list amongst our belongings? But if they wouldn't, maybe our avoda on this Yom HaAtzmaut is to write that list. What's your list? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? Who do you want to be? Imagine if each of us who are here tonight, and Baruch Hashem, it's beautiful to see such a full shul, but imagine if each of us took a Kabbalah tonight, that over the course of the next day, write your life list. And you could revisit it, and you could edit it, and you could change it. But make a Kabbalah that by the time tomorrow comes to an end, you have a life list of the things you want to accomplish, the things you want to do, the person you want to be. And that list then serves as a guiding light, as a lodestar for the kind of life you want to lead and the kind of person you want to be. Imagine how we would change. Imagine how our families would change. Imagine how Klal Yisrael would be uplifted. And imagine the aliyah to the neshamas that we could provide. We did our avoda by remembering that which has been lost. And as we transition into Yom HaAtzmaut, we take a moment to thank Hashem and to say, Hodu la Hashem ki tov ki li'olam chasto. Thank you, Ribono Shel Olam, for giving us a miracle in the founding of the modern state of Israel. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for giving us the only democracy in the Middle East. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for giving us a strong and brave and valiant army that is willing to fight evil and not bow to world pressure. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for giving us a country, for giving us a Medina that has the ability to maintain moral clarity in a world which so often lacks it. And thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for allowing us to live in a time where we know that we could always go home. That's not a gift to be taken lightly, and that's not a gift to be taken sparingly. We have a home, and her doors are always open to us. and her borders are always open to us. And should we choose one day to not merely sing V'shavu banim ligvulam, but Emeretz Hashem, to live that mantra, that dream is realizable if we truly want it. And for that, on this Yom HaAtzmaut, Tavshin Pei Dalet 5784, we say thank you, Ribono Shel Olam, for the great gift of Medinas Yisrael. May we be Zocheh Emeretz Hashem to see the return of our hostages. May we be Zocheh Emeretz Hashem to see the safety, security, and success in each and every one of our soldiers. And may we be Zocheh Emeretz Hashem to see the coming of Mashiach, the Geula Shlema, the rebuilding of the third Beis HaMikdash from here, Rabbi Yameinu. Amen. Yep.
Vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim ligvulam. Vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim ligvulam. Vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim ligvulam. Vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim ligvulam. Vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim, vishavu vanim ligvulam.
I want to thank everyone for participating in tonight's program. I also just want to bring your attention. Over the course of the video, you heard about a number of different initiatives. It's incredible to see that each of these families are launching an initiative to memorialize the son who was lost, the son who was held captive. The group compiled all of these initiatives on one page, actually a double-sided page. They are available up here in front of the shul, as well as in the back table when you exit the shul. And as we started, please, I urge you, take a few moments to look at these beautiful neshamas, say a kapitel of Tehillim. And again, in Emeretz Hashem, we should be zocha to beautiful besoros tovos, geula for Klal Yisrael from here, Rabbi Yameinu. Ma'ariv will take place in the Beis Medrash rooms 2 and 3 now. Thank you again for coming out tonight.